Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic, and if you're new here, this is not what my hair looks like in all my other videos, but what I like to do here is a variety of artsy content, crafting, creating, all of that fun stuff, and today I'm doing the convention review of my cosplay, my latest cosplay, and the biggest thing is I won Best Novice. I'm super happy about that. I was honestly debating whether or not I should enter it this year, and this is just at a local convention. It's not like massive, but to me this still means something. So anyways, kind of what happened with the cosplay. Are there things I think I did differently in both the cosplay and the judging, and kind of just how it wore at a convention and what I want to change in the next iteration. So I'll get started with kind of like one piece at a time, kind of how I did my armor one from last year. And I'll also talk a little bit about the convention itself because this was absolutely incredible. So at this convention, the main reason we went was because there was Jonathan Frakes and George Takei. I realized I should have looked up the correct way to pronounce his name before I started this. Forgive me, I will correct myself in editing.
It's Takei, not Takai.
But we wanted to get the photo op with them in this costume because it is a Star Trek costume, and so I thought that was really cool. So we booked it in the morning. We were almost a little late for the photo op, and the photo op is the only place that I used this. This was my secondary headpiece, just so it could sit kind of on the side, because I remembered looking at the photos from last year, they kind of cropped it like right above our heads, and so I thought the magnificence of the crown would be lost. But, so walk in, George and Jonathan are sitting there, and they both immediately are like, wow, you look so amazing. The verbs, the adjectives they used specifically were dazzling and radiant. Those are the two that I remember. And the coolest thing was that Jonathan Frakes actually recognized where the character was from. He was like, that's Discovery, Star Trek Discovery Mirror Universe. And I was like, yes! So he knew where it was from, which was like so cool. So this is before I'd entered this into the contest. So my day was made from the get-go. It did not matter what else happened because Jonathan Frakes knew who I was, and I got called radiant and dazzling, so, But that's the only time I wore this, and honestly, it functioned perfectly fine. My boyfriend had to help me put it in, and we probably should have practiced doing that before we got there. But all that aside, I have no complaints about this, other than maybe the way it's glued, because I'm realizing now it's only glued to 2 of the 3 pieces. So maybe making sure that those 3 back ones function as one. I did make this literally on Monday, and the convention I wore this on a Saturday, so definitely room for improvements. I literally made this a week before.
Here's the final headpiece. I don't think this got to be shown, so I did some little embellishments there, and I did realize later this is supposed to be more like a pointy thing down. Again, I made this at the last minute, so this is something I could definitely improve again in the future, because this shape is actually entirely wrong. But otherwise, aesthetically, other than this being wrong, I think this came out really good and would have been something fun to wear if I didn't wear the crown the whole time.
But let's talk about the other headpiece. I thought this crown was going to actually be so obnoxious to wear, and in reality it was easier to wear than carry because of the amount of people there. I went ahead, and so we put the mannequin head in the bottom of a big tote bag, and it was a tote bag that mostly cleared the edges minus these, but these are vinyl so they bend really easily, so I wasn't worried about like that. So we carried her around in a tote bag until she got judged about, and then I put it on, and then I just kind of kept it on because honestly it was easier to maneuver around people when the radius was up here rather than when I was trying to hold it in a bag and protect it down below. So it was actually a lot more comfortable and a lot easier to wear than I thought. I will say I contribute that a little bit to, I was kind of practicing. So like in the week leading up to it, I was literally wearing it for like at least 10 minutes a night to just kind of like get used to the feeling of it on my head. But in the final bit of the cosplay contest, I probably wore it for a solid 2 hours. So honestly, gonna say it never fell. This thing never fell off my head. So gonna say, I think that went really well, much better than I expected.
So something I haven't talked about that deserves to be talked about is the back of this headpiece. So this is the back facing up, and if you'll notice, there's not these things coming off the back of it. There's actually archive photos of her headdress available that have these long spikes, like 5 of them, that basically collect at the nape of her neck. So I kind of had those, but the wire I had wasn't super strong and it wasn't really doing anything. So there's currently hair clips, which would work, except I didn't use them. This ended up being perfectly fine as is and stable enough. So in the future, I think finding the right wire to actually put those basically claw around the head would make this even more stable. But as it is, this was honestly fine. So I just wanted to show some of the messiness I was talking about. Like, there's gapping, it's just like really inconsistent as far as coloring, you know, if it focuses on it, that's just like not clean. And I really do think if I did it now, I could make it much, much cleaner. The other thing is you can see there's a bunch of glue on the spikes. A lot of the spikes aren't actually glued together anymore, they're separating. That's just from manhandling. That's just me not caring for this thing necessarily properly, and probably not using the right glue to glue these things together in the first place. The process that I did may not have been the best one. I did go through and add a dot of E6000 into the center of all of these little guys because they kept falling off. So I made sure that those wouldn't fall off. This is also technically supposed to be more of a trapezoid instead of a semicircle. That's something to fix. Honestly, the one thing I have no complaints on for the crown is the way I did these little jewelry pieces. I think I got all of the jewelry-based spikes that it doesn't want to focus on perfectly. I'm obsessed with my bead choice. I think they were just the right amount of sparkle. Flip her over. Like, I really like the bead choice. Only critique, I might actually glue these ones to just be like straight so the beads aren't turning all sorts of which ways. That might be the only critique I have, is gluing these down so they actually just stay the direction they're supposed to. But genuinely, these are like my favorite little bits. These, I don't know what to call them, but those guys, I like those a lot. But the outside, I had to go in and hand paint. This inner lip was left white, so I went in and hand painted because it was kind of obvious and it was really, really painful to see. And I did it. I cannot get a good angle above this thing, but I went in literally all the way around where I could. And also the fact that you can see down to the center where the wire is, I don't know that I like that either. I think there's got to be a way to do this better where you don't have that gap in there. So this is probably one of the pieces that I want to redo the most, just because I think I've learned the most now from doing this, and I think I could probably improve this so much with what I know now. So yeah, I don't know that I'm going to. Again, I have high aspirations, and I think it would be really, really cool, but it also might be fun to start something new. So, because this technically is wearable, and I don't have to compete it again, but I could also make it even better. So it's kind of the catch-22, you know? But yeah, look at all of that. Ugh. Look at all of that extra glue that's visible. This could be cleaned up so much. Is it impressive? Yes. Could it be better? Also, yes.
The piece that went just about as expected, EVA foam doesn't breathe at all. So the only piece of this costume that really had me sweating all the time was the chest plate. I'm really glad the undershirt that I went with for this was an athletic material, so this material is super, super thin. It luckily wasn't see-through, so I could take the chest plate off and not be concerned about anything. But I was really happy with my choice of undershirt because this was a really, really thin undershirt. So it worked really well, and there were definitely periods at the convention where I just sat on the floor in my undershirt and the pants and the boots because I was dying of heat in that thing. So, you know, unfortunately EVA foam isn't breathable. If I were to do this next time, and I think if I want to do another full armor character, I need to invest in a water vest or some kind of undercooling like liquid system so that I don't die of heat. I was fine, we drank water, I think I drank like 2 full bottles of water, so we were able to survive, but only because I took this thing off for significant periods of time. But the closures actually worked great. I'm really happy I switched to Velcro for the bottom and the outside. It just ended up working a lot better. I think my fear and hesitation with Velcro from my last cosplay was I used hot glue, and hot glue didn't really stick to the foam well. Here I used E6000 and Gorilla Glue for some of the final edges, and so like this Velcro isn't going anywhere. It's been super stuck on. Like everything's super good. So I think my issue with Velcro last year was the method that it was used to be glued to the foam, not the Velcro itself. And I misinterpreted it as the Velcro itself, not what I used to attach it to the foam. So other details that worked great. Let's go to the undershirt. These collar details, I never ended up shortening the back, and that's because I did realize that for heat purposes, it would probably be nice to have it away from my neck. You couldn't really, I don't think you would have been able to visually tell a difference. This looked perfectly fine. Something I got complimented on by the judges, and I'll do some overhead shots of a lot of these details so that I'll hopefully intersperse my talking with them. So I added at like the last second, so I don't think it's been in any of the videos, I added these little hand things, and I'll put my arm through the shoulder sleeve to kind of show. I added these little hand triangles, and so there's a ring, and it's literally just 2 round loops of a gold wire of ring, and then black material that goes, and I sewed it into the cuff. And so I hemmed up the edges real nice, and then I sewed it in, and then flipped the whole seam under and top stitched it so that it was even all the way around. The hands were looking a little bit plain. That's also why I put on fake nails, which I've been learning to deal with. I popped them off like 4 times. So in my little like help emergency bag, I had nail glue and extra safety pins because if something went wrong, I needed to be prepared. But back to that little hand thing, because I was a little concerned. A rule for this contest is 75% has to be handmade. So I have a lot of things that I did make, but I did not make the shoes, I did not make the pants, and I did not make the top. So I wanted to try to add as many little things as I could to add to what I made, which is why I showed them this in judging. Like, I was not wearing it, I was wearing the crown, but I brought this out and I was like, hey, I want to show you I made this too. It is a valid character alternative to the headpiece that she wears. So, and I wasn't sure how I was going to feel at the convention, so I made this as well. Like, I brought this out. So I wanted to add, I knew I added these little collar details, but just to give it a little extra something. And again, tie the hands in, because I do think having something on the hands made it just like the next level. She does have black gloves in a lot of scenes, but it's not super consistent. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, and I think this was a nice way to tie that in. And one of the things they complimented was how well I color matched this additional fabric to this black fabric.
Here's the little bits that I added on the hands. You can see there's 2 lines of top stitching. That was just to extra secure this flap down because I, left a little bit too much. And you can see there's the turned down, and this was a stitch that could stretch, but this is a little bit harder to see. There is a first line over here. There is a first line stitching this to the jacket, which I do believe is that one, and then this is the line that goes all the way around, stitching that top one down to kind of hold it in place. This was done mostly just to give some additional modification to a piece that I bought. Something I didn't mention, these were not glued in or secured at all, so these were really annoying and I had to keep adjusting those throughout the day. There's definitely something I can do to improve or fix that by getting like an actual like solid gold jump ring instead of just looped wire. So there's, as you can see, it's been sitting near the jacket, so it is covered in glitter, but there was the nice edge that kind of just brought an additional little detail to the collar. And here's those up close. I probably could use another paint job looking at them up close, but that might also just be wear and tear.
One of the other things that was really fun to talk with the judges about was the googly eyes. So I am presenting all of this with the assumption that you have seen my videos on how I put this thing together. If you have not, I've been collecting them in a playlist, and I'll try to remember to link that up there. If not, it may be in the description. I'm really bad at putting time cards and little slots in sometimes, but I do have a full playlist on how I put this together if you'd like to go check that out. But all of these little globes on my shoe covers, they're mostly on the shoe covers and the only other ones on the sword, are googly eyes that I cut the bottom off of and painted the inside. And I actually got a really cool tip from one of the judges. He was like, hey, when I do that for rivets, sometimes I leave the eye in there, and then as I walk, it kind of makes a sound like a rivet or like moving metal. So that's something I could have done, because these were also googly eyes, these 2 points. So that's something I could have done to leave the googly eye eyeball in there, and apparently it adds a super small but like noticeable sound of like metal makes when walking. So there's a tip I learned for anybody else who's watching this and wanted that. But so that was really fun to kind of connect with.
So here's a close-up of the boot covers. I just wanted to do a final. I made sure I went through and finished the inside edges of literally everything just to make sure. The way these close is these pass through just like that and would fold over and cinch. And that was around the back of the ankle and that was around the bottom of the shoe. So that is how the boot cover stayed on. And you'll see this in a lot of the places. You do have to be careful when painting something that's going to bend or move because you can crack the paint. Luckily, all of this paint survived up until it was judged, so I don't think it was a problem.
I made sure to highlight, this is only my second EVA chest plate ever. I've technically done 4 costumes at this point. I've done the armor, I've done my Faye Valentine, I've done the Sally dress, which I'm considering a costume, and then I've done this. So, but each one's been kind of completely different. 2 of those were like full sewing, like Faye had little tiny scraps of EVA foam, and Sally didn't have any, it was all hand painting. So I made sure to highlight, I took the jacket off and showed them the back of this thing, because I was not about to let this go unjudged and unappreciated. And they loved that, they were absolutely talking about it, and like praising me for showing them all the little things. And I think that's the other thing that made a big difference. I was super, super active in my interactions with them. And I think that only stems from, I learned what not to do last year. Last year I was really quiet. I let them kind of ask me questions. I wasn't upfront with information. And I really think being more engaging, and it's confidence. I felt so confident in this thing. I don't know how you can put a crown on and not feel like the baddest bee in the room, because I did. I felt incredible. But I really think that level of being active with the engagement helped so, so much. They told me to start from the top down and tell them everything about it. So another thing that I did, I took this belt off. I wanted to show them that all of the buckles on this were fully functional. I made sure to show them how I attached all the inside of the belt. This also allowed me to show them that it was fully finished on the inside. Thank you, Sarah Spaceman Cosplay, for that little tip. Apparently one thing they really look for is if the inside of the foam is completely finished. And so it is. I showed them that I, had that full support in there so the foam wasn't carrying all of the weight of the sword. I really, really wanted to highlight all of the little details. And they were looking at it. It's not like they were just staring at me the entire time. They were actively moving around the costume and observing all of the little things as I was telling them about it and as we were talking about it.
I don't recall, but I don't think these joints got shown very much. So this buckle is actually secured through the black belt. It's sewn onto the black belt. I think that was shown. So that is the only thing that has actual like force and tension under it. This is just looped through and secured to give that nice impression. Again, that's a googly eye. Let's see if this audio comes through because this buckle is really satisfying. Not that my camera wants to focus, but that buckle was really nice. Oops. All of this was functional. And something I did, because technically all of these are supposed to look like this, so I painted the inside of the tines gold just so there was the slightest amount visible. When I secured it like that, it just had the little pop of gold, so it wasn't full like that is, but it was something. I don't know if anyone noticed that. I don't know if I even told the judges. But something else I do want to fix in the future is I'm really sloppy with my super glue. Most of these were put in with super glue, and like you can just see it, and it's super messy. So that really bothers me, and I'd love to fix that in the future. Another thing, these 2 tones of gold are ever so slightly different, and there's a reason. One of these was spray painted first with the gold and not just a primer, and the other one was painted just straight in this gold. And there's actually a huge difference in the tone. It's a little bit more visible on the buckle on the chest plate, but you can kind of see as I turn these in the light that this is a more vibrant gold. It's such a subtle detail, but ever since I noticed it, it's been actually bothering me that most of these large panel attachments don't have the same gold as some of these other pieces do. So just something for the future is color match those better. And literally all I had to do was spray paint these sections and then paint it in this gold. That would have completely fixed it, but I didn't. It was just this gold on top of black, so that's what we got. Another thing with the belt is I was so concerned about the structural stability of this joint, even after it was hand stitched in. I actually went through and you can kind of see these areas are shiny. I just E6000 like glued these joints and these little pieces together just to add some extra something. I don't know. Did it actually help? I have no clue, but it gave me peace of mind that it helped, so I'm gonna bring it up. And I think I actually managed to cut this sort of in a way where it's not the most obnoxious. It could have been a little bit more of a cleaner, you know, diamond, but that's literally just where it happened to need to be cut to make the lengths work. So that's totally something that could be updated or fixed in the future to just make that even more precise and just kind of hide that join even better.
They were really impressed with the crown. And the crown is one of the things I see the most room for improvement in the crown, and I'll tell you why. That's what I started with. This is the first thing on this costume that I did, and therefore I think there's so many things I could do better. The inside of this is super, super messy. I didn't finish the foam on the inside of the crown. I literally spent a day with a paintbrush trying not to get paint all over the place by painting the inside of the crown that I missed gold instead of white. I think there's a lot of extra glue like all around these edges. So I was afraid all of the messiness on the crown was going to come back to bite me, but nobody could see it because they were just too in awe of this massive thing on my head. So, you know, it worked out. But that's like, it's those like little details that, especially if I compete again as like a journeyman, I'd want to address or fix, have much cleaner lines, have much cleaner aesthetics. I am a novice, which means I've not won anything before. So now I've won something. So technically I think I can now compete in journeyman. I have to like figure that out. But all of the little details I was trying so hard to pay attention to, which was easier in the pieces that I got to later. I've learned so much as I've done this. It's been kind of crazy. One of the things that I got some comments on, but honestly not a lot, and I think that's okay, is the sword. I did make sure to tell them that this does not separate. This is completely glued together as a scabbard, which is why it's a little flimsy, but again, I'm not pulling the sword out of it, so like, I think it's fine. So obviously a change I want to make for this thing in the future is I want to actually make the sword and scabbard separate. I want to be able to remove them. I want to have two different pieces. This functioned perfectly well. I was able to walk with it just fine. I did in my stage show, I'll include those, I'm not entirely sure where, I like spun my cape around and was all dramatic with it because I wanted you to be able to see the sword.
Small details with the sword. I don't think I have many other than I also decided to paint this the yellow gold instead of just leaving it this color. It kind of looked like it was in the handle, and it was also a nice way to tie in that color and make the gold on the rest of the handle look a little bit more intentional. This red may actually be a little bit too dark, but I don't care because I think it actually looks like a really good color for leather, so I'm really happy with it. I'm honestly incredibly happy with how like the pommel and stuff turned out, minus there's some, you know, missed painting and color bleeding. The biggest just misstep is the entire scabbard in general, but I did get these stripes on, and there's even, not that they're going to show up well in the light, you can see it super faintly. There's the gray stripes on the side there, and obviously that is painted in the back as well. So that's kind of it for the sword. I think I showed actually most of what was involved in the sword as far as the paint job. And there's also those gray lines up there as the final detailing on it. But yeah, this is the piece that I will absolutely be redoing some point in the future because I actually want a sword and not just a scabbard.
But the biggest thing, as I just wave that in front of the camera, is how I talk to them and being so much more active in my presentation to them and taking pieces off, literally handing it to them to examine or look at. Like, we ran over our time. They were so wowed and impressed by everything that I had done. They literally kept saying, hey, we're out of time. Like, you gotta stop. Like, we're out of time. So the judging experience this year was awesome. And it was really, really nice to get that recognition and appreciation for the hard work. But I just kind of wanted to summarize a lot of those little details as far as the judging experience and wearing this thing. The only other complaint I have about wearing this thing the one I knew I was gonna have complaints about, and that's the shoes. Their heels. I was in them for 6 hours. It sucked. My feet are dead. That's literally all there is to it. The foam things survived. The sword worked perfectly fine. The belt works great. Structurally and functionally, this costume had so few problems compared to, I feel like the armor had little things I was constantly adjusting. With that, there is one thing. The jacket. The jacket sat on my shoulders great when I was standing still. I could hoist it and it would stay. As soon as I started walking, it would just shrug off. And it looked fine, but like it kind of means the collar did weird things. If the collar wasn't fully up, it kind of sat weird. So I think if I hid magnets or put magnets on like the inner shoulders of the chest plate, or even literal hooks on the chest plate for the jacket to like sit on so it stayed, I kind of think that's what it needs. It was just missing a little something to kind of help it stay in place. But otherwise, I was the only person who stepped on the jacket, so you know, that's fine. No one else had problems with stepping on the jacket that I noticed. People were pretty quick to get out of my way when I was wearing the crown. The sleeves were fine. It wasn't super breathable, but that was really easy to take off and just slug over my arm and walk around if I needed just a little bit of a breather.
The only thing I really have to talk about with the jacket is where I screwed up. So I was so not careful when I was doing this final detailing, and so I ended up with paint smudges all along the inside, luckily mostly on the bottom, so I don't think anyone ever saw it. So the way I fixed this, and you can tell it didn't really work, is I just painted over top of it. It clearly showed through because that was literally the day before the convention, so that wasn't gonna work super well. But, you know, in the future, I'm not gonna get paint on my fabric. This is why I need to get better at that. I'm just a little chaotic and messy in my crafting process. In my soul, I want to be the has everything organized in rainbow order before beginning a project kind of crafter. And in reality, I am a scatter everything across the table and just figure it out as I go kind of crafter. So is that something for me to work on in the future? Probably. Is it going to happen? Debatable. But that's about the only thing with the jacket. Obviously, some of these sections went a little bit better than others. Like that looks really nice and consistent. I don't know what was happening there. And they're like inches away from each other. So being more precise or having something other than glue and paint in a piping bag might have been a better choice for the outside of the jacket. Do I really think I'm going to redo the jacket in the future? No, at least not in the near future. The sword is the big thing that I see myself redoing for this project in the near future. But honestly, that's about all I have for the jacket, other than there's nothing to show up at the top. Other than I'm definitely going to think about installing some kind of magnets or hook in this extra flap of fabric that sits on my shoulder in the future, so it'll actually stay where I want it on the chest plate. I think I talked about it briefly in my previous video, but there's a variety of pieces of plastic sewn in, and when I say sewn in, I mean there's literally, I used gold thread, not on this side because it's shoved that way, but there's basically little gold channels keeping these guys exactly where I want them. This one is right there. I tried to hide it with the seam because, again, it's shoved that way. So oh, nope, it looks like I did just a little bit on that side, too, to make sure it wouldn't go anywhere or fall over. So there are 6 pieces. Yeah, there's 3 on each side, so there's one. There we go. So, yeah, because that's the center. So there's 2 there, and those don't actually look to have channels in them. I guess I figured those would just stay wedged in enough on their own. But the side ones do have channels because I was concerned about them turning. And last but not least is the chest plate. You can see that color difference, at least I can see it, that there's a color difference between this gold stripe and that right there. Again, it's what I mentioned, it just didn't have this gold painted first. I don't know how I'd fix that for the rivets though, because I painted the inside of the googly eye. So I'd still have to paint it that color first. I don't know, maybe that would be acceptable if the rivets are a different color. I know this looks like it has a pretty big gap, but I don't think that gap was actually too noticeable while I was wearing it, which was super awesome. Another thing I want to comment on is this part right here. I think I could have easily brought this forwards a good maybe centimeter more and still had it be perfectly like acceptable visually and also be far more wearable. Like just bring this out further and kind of cup it around, kind of following this line here. would probably have just been so much more comfortable because I really had limited movement in this thing. But those are like my only two thoughts. Well, and that EVA foam isn't breathable and it was just really stiff. But honestly, I am incredibly happy with this chest plate, and only critique would be make it so I can fit like a cooling vest underneath, and then it would be perfect. Other than the glaring texture flaws, because obviously I'd want to fix that. But, you know, that kind of requires an entire reconstruction. So, to be determined. But I've learned a lot now on how to deal with foam. Should have just bought a Dremel to begin with. Definitely made these a little bit too tight. And honestly, I'm really pleased with this though. Again, this is only my second chest plate. I think I did just fine. So, are there improvements? Yes. Am I still proud of it? Absolutely.
But overall, this cosplay held up incredibly. She survived, and that's what I was worried about. This cosplay held up so well, and I do think I put a little bit of extra attention into the survivability and longevity of this piece and of these pieces compared to the armorer. And that's just because I didn't know any better. I know better how to attach EVA foam pieces and how to really think about these connectors. I know better what glue to use and what materials that I should be using instead. The right Velcro, the right thread, the right glue, like all of that matters so much. And I think it made a really big difference in not only how this came out, but how I was able to wear it and enjoy it the day of. But I got nothing but positive responses and feedback from people who had no clue who I was. The most common thing was, oh my God, you look incredible. I have no idea who you are, but you look great. So that was really fun. A few people asked to take my picture, less than last year, but I kind of understand that because she is not a well-known character. And not only is she not a well-known character, it's a not well-known character's alternative universe, very specific outfit. So, you know, but I did have a few people be like, well, hello, Empress. And I was like, hello, Taryn, or something. I don't know. It was fun. I tried to mess with it a little bit, but I'm really bad at staying in character because as soon as they complimented or knew who I was like, thanks, because I'm a mess. But it was really fun. Yesterday was a long day, but it was such a great day. And at the end of it all, I won. So this is for Best Novice. I'll have to find a nice little place to show it off, but I think that's so incredible. I have some pictures and videos of me walking across the stage, of me getting the award, and also just standing on the stage smiling like the biggest idiot in the world. Two other comments as far as just like interactions with people. I went back later in the day to get signatures from both Jonathan Frakes and George, and Jonathan kept again giving me just more compliments and was amazed that I'd put everything together. And I had them sign the same artwork that I had Gates McFadden, Brent Spiner, John Delancey, and William Shatner sign last year. And he was like, did you do this? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, that's so cool. Like, he just appreciating the artistry of everything. Best moment was George. I was carrying the crown in front of me. I didn't have it on. And he basically told me, why don't you have the crown on? You should be showing it off. All of your hard work, show it off. So that was really fun. They were two like super sweet, so incredible. So we are in prep mode. It is 2 hours till we plan to be at the event, and so I kind of laid everything out here on my ironing board the night before. I've got some safety pins for last minute things, and if you'll notice, I put on some claws. Not the most character accurate thing, but to kind of finish the whole regal look, thought it would be fun to either paint my nails or get fake ones. So I bought myself some fake ones of this nice dark red to kind of go with those symbols right there. So I've got the jacket, there's the sword, there's the chest plate, and there's one other thing that's really interesting about this. Here's my solution for not wearing the crown all day. So I stuck the mannequin head that I usually have it live on in this bag, and the crown is just sitting on the mannequin head in that bag, and surprisingly enough, the handles do reach above the crown. All of the jewelry pieces have clearance on the sides, sort of, or I can get people to help me just bend them back into place really quick. Honestly, this is kind of the best solution so we can carry it around the convention and not have to worry about anything. So she's going to live in this one. I'm not wearing it. And there's my coffee finished heating up in the microwave because I didn't brew fresh one today. But I don't think it's going to be a worry with all of these little bits on the side with the vinyl. There's only one jewelry piece that's maybe compromised. So that is how I plan to walk her around the convention. So not the best lighting, excuse the happy birthday decorations in the background, we just hosted a party for my friend. But this is what we're doing for the makeup. I'm not good at contour, so we tried to put a little bit on. I'm not sure if it looks like contour or brown smudges on my face. I feel so witchy. I've already broken a nail, like lost one. So in my little bag of what I'm bringing with me, I'm bringing fashion tape so I can glue these down to my hands. I'm bringing the nail glue in case I keep popping these off. And I think I'm gonna bring some makeup wipes just in case something just kind of goes weird, and maybe my foundation brush. But this is what we have so far, and I'm just waiting so I can do my boyfriend's hair. He's gonna wear his spike jacket that I made us for Halloween, and then we're gonna get on going.
Mirror Universe Empress Philippa Georgiou.
If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I'm sure I've been smiling like an idiot this entire time. It's really just been an incredible experience, and I'm looking forward to whatever my next adventure is. Now I have to top this. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. So, anyways, with all that said, thank you so much for watching. If you want, give this video a like, subscribe. Tell YouTube you might want to visit this corner of the internet again. I would love to have you. And with all of that said, I will see you in the next one.